From Channel 4, this is an Eye on Black and Gold pregame special.
It never rains in Southern California. That song lyric so true. Perfect weather in Carson, California at Dignity Health Sports Park for some preseason football. The Saints ready for preseason game number 2. Welcome in to the Eye on the Black and Gold pregame special. I'm Ricardo LeCompte. That's Andrew Doak. The Saints and Chargers will kick off in an hour right here on Channel 4. Until then, we'll hook you up with everything you need to know before today's game.
No doubt about it. Now, throughout the show, you're going to hear from Saints players and analysis from a number of guests. The Saints come close to breaking training camp this upcoming week. We'll also tell you how the Saints and Chargers 2 joint practices went this week. 2 teams practicing together for a 3rd straight year.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good stuff coming up. Let's bring in our 3rd member of the team, Sports Director Doug Mouton. He's been covering the Saints all week in SoCal, and he joins us live from the site of today's preseason game. Hey, Doug.
Yeah, hey, Ricardo. Welcome to Dignity Health Sports Park here in Carson, California. For now, this is the home of the Los Angeles Chargers. Their new stadium, which will be called LA Stadium at Hollywood Park, is expected to be ready to go next year. So for now, for this year again, they're back here at Dignity Health Sports Park. It's a 27,000-seat soccer field, and that's where the Saints and the Chargers will play today. Now, of course, as you guys said, they practice against each other Thursday and Friday, and needless to say, all of the talk from the Saints after those practices was weather-related. Is the climate change extremely noticeable?
Yeah, very much so. I'm not soaking wet right now.
It's significant, and so you're not breaking as much maybe as you would be at home. Typically we'd have 6 or 7 breaks, and I think that's good. One of the good things about coming here to work.
Do you feel fresher even at the end than you would have?
Well, I still got my pads on right now, and I usually still sweating at this point, and so the fact that there ain't no sweat on my arms is just different.
Is the mental break of getting here, just getting away for a few days out of the heat,
you mean where it's not 95 degrees, 100% humidity? Oh yeah, it's taxing. I tell you, it's a real try to somehow wake up in California and have this cool breeze hitting your face. God, I don't know how people do it.
I was actually getting like a little cold while I was sitting on the side. You don't have that problem back in Louisiana, so I guess it felt good, right? But no, this, it's California. You can't beat the weather.
Yeah, look, the sun is out now. When we got out here onto the field about an hour and a half ago, it was overcast, and I asked the security guard, is it going to rain today? And she looked at me like it was the dumbest question she had ever heard. She said, no, it never rains here. We're going to bring in Steve Geller, this Saints sideline reporter from WWO Radio.
Who dat?
Here's the least surprising thing we saw in California this week. A half hour before the gates opened for joint practice number 1, and the vast majority of fans in line were wearing black and gold, not Charger blue. And what we also found were not displaced New Orleanians, but California natives like Jeffrey Wright, who grew up on the West Coast, pulling for the Saints.
Growing up in LA without the Rams or the Chargers, Raiders here, my generation, a lot of kids growing up in high school, Steelers, Saints, I adopted them after Katrina, after not really having an NFL team, and the story of how that football really brought the city back, and Drew Brees, it doesn't get better than that.
Just being here with my daughter, number 1 fan, me, number 2 fan, and just something she really wanted to do. We love the Saints, can't even tell you.
We caught up with a family who flew down here from Vancouver in Canada to see a Saints practice, and a fan who flew in from the Bay Area.
You're from the San Francisco area?
Yeah.
Would you say there was much support for the Saints in that area?
Oh, yeah. It was big. I tried to get this I was changing my license plate, and then I had a hard time finding a good, finally my license plate now says Breezy 1. I want to get Who Dat or Breezy 9. Apparently there's a lot of Saints fans in California, so I couldn't get that.
Yeah, look, Saints fans show up on every road trip in huge numbers. We're seeing a bunch in the stands already this morning here in Carson, California. And look, for all the people who said they were done with the NFL in the immediate aftermath of the no call, and who could blame them, we are finding just the opposite now 6 months later. We have seen huge, enthusiastic crowds for the Saints practices in Metairie and at that night practice in Tulane, and again here for the joint practices in Carson, California. Now, of course, in the offseason, Mike Thomas, who signed it late in the offseason, and Cam Jordan both signed long, big-time contract extensions to stay in New Orleans. We caught up with Jordan after Friday's joint practice in Costa Mesa. When Mike Thomas signed, you grabbed the mic. You looked like the happiest guy out there.
No doubt.
Is part of that because you got your extension and you obviously want Mike to get his too?
I mean, my extension had nothing to do with him getting paid. I mean,
sure, but
you talk about, I mean, you're just happy for your teammates. When you know how much somebody's worked, you know the grind that they've put in, and then you see them come in and put together 3 unbelievable seasons, that warrants a payday. I've always said, pay the man, pay the man.
You and Mike both let it be known that you wanted to stay in New Orleans
Absolutely.
long term. That kind of thing obviously means a lot to people in New Orleans. What is it about the city and the team that you said, you know what, I am happy if I don't play anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about exactly what the city means to the team, what the team means to the city. You go anywhere in New Orleans and it's family. I mean, you walk through, whether it be the mall or the shops, and I mean, everybody knows you, if you follow me, you follow my Instagram or whatever it is, you know my whole family life, you know my whole situation, whether it's like, hey, you know, how's you and your wife, how are you and your kids, how's you, and you know, it's a very interpersonal relationship. And
you like that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it feels like family. And you talk about, you know, just going to the grocery store. They check out, oh, I saw your little one yesterday with your wife, and you know, you already know exactly where you are. It's a very familial feel. So you come to the team and you have a phenomenal coach, coaching staff. You have a phenomenal organization that I've never had to worry about which head coach is going to be where head coach, you know, where my next D-line coach is coming from. I've had 2 D-line coaches in 9 years. And I mean, you know, you can't ask for much more than that. Now, I did start off rocky. I had 4 D coordinators in 4 years here.
Yeah, right,
but, you know, we've got DA and we're heading to, what, year 3.5? I don't know how to count that. There was that awkward Rob Ryan DA year.
That was awkward.
I mean, 4 years in, you're overly comfortable in the defense.
You feel like your personality, just your personal, who you are, fits in well with New Orleans?
Whether it fits in well or not, I can't be anything more than myself. So, I mean, it's been very endearing and welcoming, so I can't say it doesn't fit.
The fewer snaps, and I've asked you about this 100 times, and you always deflect this question. The fewer snaps you took last year, do you feel any different now? Did you feel different at the end of the year? Was that a good thing for you? Is it a good thing for you long term?
Yeah, I don't know. I leave that to the staff and the organization. I do know every snap I take, I always want the next snap. I always want more. When it comes to, you know, what I do on the field, I always want to be the best, and I always want to be the best every play. So whether I lose a couple snaps or we're up by so many touchdowns, you know, things are being rotated out. I can't say it's a preferable or agreeable, but I do know that it helps us win. So whatever puts us in a winning position.
All of us who grew up in New Orleans or from New Orleans understand we got a 40-year-old quarterback, greatest player in Saints history. When you start this season with a team that is unbelievably talented and a lot of veterans,
no doubt,
and a 40-year-old quarterback, are you trying to sort of take this all in as you go in a different way? Because I'm not saying this is the last run, but you know there's not going to be a ton more.
No,
and
I don't.
This is the.
Why don't I know that?
You think he can
Drew
keep
said
going?
he was playing till 45. That's a 5-year window. That's as long as my contract. I'm perfectly happy with that. If he decided to play till 50, I'm sure he can play till 50. As long as Drew say he's playing. I mean, at this point, it's a battle of attrition between Brady and Drew.
Right.
And Drew's, you know, Tom Brady's got a year on Drew. So if Tom Brady retired, I start looking. Until then, I just think they're just gonna battle this one out. Battle of the greats.
Beautiful.
No doubt.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Cam Jordan will not even consider the possibility of NFL life without Drew Brees. That's beautiful stuff. Now look, in Saints history, 4 other guys. Jordan's been to 4 Pro Bowls. 4 other Saints defenders have been to at least 4 Pro Bowls. They are the 4 Dome Patrol members. Pat Swilling, Vaughn Johnson, Sam Mills with 4 Pro Bowls each. Ricky Jackson, the most of any Saints defensive player with 6. Cam Jordan, the best defensive lineman without question in Saints history. Now for today, the Saints are wearing wearing the black jerseys with the gold numbers. And coming up next, we will look at those 2 LA practices as the Saints and the Chargers went head-to-head for 2 days. And Andrew Doak will look at one of the most interesting battles in camp, the battle to be the Saints' nickelback. That's coming up when our Eye on the Black and Gold pregame show continues from California. Welcome back to our Eye on the Black and Gold pregame special. Of course, the Saints and the Chargers starting up at the top of the hour. We will take you there from here in Carson, California. That was Drew Brees doing the chant in the end zone. They have now broken up. Saints warming up, Chargers warming up. Again, less than an hour from kickoff. Now, Sean Payton has not released rotations for this game yet, but based on what we've seen in the past, we do not expect his frontline guys to play much, if at all. But everyone practiced for 2 days as the Saints and Chargers went head-to-head. It was 2 days of back and forth workouts. After the practices here in Southern California, when we asked players for their overall impressions, most talked about the weather first. Your impressions of the 2 days of work here, what'd you think?
Work here? What? It's 72 degrees and sunny.
True, and they were also 2 of the NFL's elite teams last year, who certainly know what they're doing.
I would say it's pretty well organized. Feels like it goes by real fast. You know, you get your reps, you get out of there, and then you look around like, okay, you know, did I do enough?
And for 2 days, the Chargers and the Saints fired shots back and forth. Phillip Rivers definitely dominated at times, but the Saints also hit on some offensive shots with a different young receiver grabbing the spotlight each day. Thursday was number 15, 23-year-old former Indiana Hoosier, Simi Cobbs.
Man, there's some times he does some things very well, and other times he's got to work on the specifics of the position. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, he's one of those young players that needs the reps, needs the work, and you know, a practice like today is extremely beneficial to some of those younger guys.
It's not exactly what you call a ringing endorsement, but Cobbs got noticed Thursday. Friday, it was former LSU sprinter Cyril Grayson who drew similar comments.
Look, he's made some plays for us. He's inconsistent right now, so I think it's going to be important these next 3 weeks to start seeing a little bit better pattern. But he can run, and there's some things that you see that he's doing real well, and then at times there's some plays that, whether it's technique, whether it's a split, some of the details.
Good and bad. That was the theme for 2 days. Vince Beagle got sacks on back-to-back plays here Friday. But things weren't always great either. And to be honest, without full pads, it's often hard to tell who won on a particular play.
You never really know until you look at the tape, and it's at the end of the day, it's not live, so some plays that you don't know how it would look in a bang situation, so it's kind of toss up. But I think it was some good work done all around.
Chopping at the bit to get the season started, so to come out here and go against some new guys and work on our game and get better is great.
They're a team that obviously was a playoff team a year ago, and yeah, I think when you get two teams working together like that, it helps both sides.
Yeah, and I think that sort of says it all. Now, one guy we do see in street clothes is Teron Armstead. We would not expect Armstead to be playing today. And then the one injury question going forward, and Sean Payton does not have to answer any injury questions at this point, is linebacker Alex Anzalone. We have not seen him at practice the last few practices. He is here in California. He did take a trip to the Del Mar racetrack with other players yesterday, but we haven't seen him practice in a while. Hopefully we'll get an update on him in the next week or so. He's the one guy that's out. For now, let's send it back to Andrew Doak in New Orleans with one of the best battles of training camp. Andrew.
Hey, Doug. Yeah, no question. There's no question that the Saints secondary as well has a lot of depth this season, but their arguably deepest position on defense and most exciting competition is at nickelback, and it's a spot you're going to want to keep your eye on today against the Chargers. Right now, the Saints' nickel corner spot is up for grabs. P.J. Williams and Patrick Robinson are involved in one of the closest battles that Saints training camp has to offer, and it's just starting to heat up.
It's a battle, but we got 3 guys there that we're pleased with that can go in and step in and play at any time, and I don't think we'll miss a beat. Well, I know we won't miss a beat at all.
Williams has a bit of Jekyll and Hyde to his game. Depending on what tape you decide to put on, he could look like a first-rounder one night and a man fighting to make the 53-man roster the next. Williams returned this season as the incumbent starter, a surprise since Patrick Robinson was lured back to New Orleans last year for that exact role. But as fortune would have it, Robinson broke his left ankle in Week 3 at Atlanta, and Williams has yet to surrender the job. But defensive coordinator Dennis Allen says it's still a competition. Allen said there's a comfort level with P.J. Williams at nickel because of how he performed last season. A classic case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's also because Allen said he hasn't seen what he needs to from Robinson.
I think as you go into training camp, you want to see like there's somebody that, where P-Rob's overtaking him.
Yeah.
You'd kind of like to see that just, show up to you. And right now, I think both of them have done a good job. But right now, we see PJ a little bit ahead.
Now, Allen said he believes Robinson is 100% back to full strength in terms of how he's moving and his explosiveness. And remember, P-Rob was the highest-rated slot corner in the NFL with the Eagles 2 years ago, according to Pro Football Focus. He allowed opposing quarterbacks a passer rating of just 65.2. Compare that to Williams last season, who allowed opposing QBs a rating of 109.3. So while Williams is the leader in the clubhouse right now, there's still a few rounds left to play, and it would go a long way if Robinson could shoot a low number this afternoon. Andrew Doak, Eyewitness Sports. Then when we come back here in just a minute, we'll bring you the story on how the Saints strategically plan their practice schedules during training camp, especially for the vets. Plus, Saints corner Marshawn Lattimore believes year 3 is the year that he needs to put himself among the NFL's elite corners. That's when our Eye on the Black and Gold pregame special continues.
And most of the Saints team has now made their way back to the locker rooms. Preseason game number 2 at the top of the hour. Of course, that game here on Channel 4. Stay with us. Now, in preseason game number 1, rookie center Eric McCoy answered a lot of the questions about him. The Saints have had him as their starter since day 1 when he got here. In that game number 1, he drew rave reviews. Now, earlier this week here in Southern California, after one of the joint practices, we caught up with longtime Saints offensive lineman and voice of the Saints, Zach Strief, for his thoughts on the offensive line play, but in particular, starting with Eric McCoy.
All right, let's start with Eric McCoy. What have you seen in him, and what have the reviews been from the guys on the team?
So I think with a young offensive lineman, it's the first skill you're looking for is, does he have an anchor? Can he stop power? Because it's the thing that you can't, there's no avoiding that. You can take a guy that's a speed rusher, you can try to set to take that away, but if a guy can run through you, it's a really tough deal. So I think he showed that the first day of pads, and I think almost collectively around the building, it's like, let's see how this looks, because you don't know until you put pads on, and he's got plenty of that. And I think was a relief for everybody. But for me, where he really stuck out was the first preseason game. Got good movement at the point of attack. Looked comfortable, looked like he belonged, and I think that's kind of how the building feels, is that he's going to work out really well. And I think, collectively, the draft as a whole has been a hit, but I think they're really excited about Eric's future.
Is it almost the most advantageous position for a young offensive lineman to put him between Larry Warford and Andres Pete? I mean, that is setting him up for success, right?
Yeah, he's playing next to 2 very good, Pro Bowl caliber players, and it's certainly easier inside to protect a guy a little bit, and he's also in a system here where the quarterback is operating a lot of the mechanics that some offenses rely on the center to do, calling the mic, building the protections. Drew handles that here, and so a lot of the mental aspect is it's a lower threshold with the Saints. So he's set up in a good spot. He's going to realize very quickly that he's surrounded by experience and surrounded by guys that can help him in a tough situation. But I think the most promising thing is he doesn't seem to need it.
Yeah, and that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Is the biggest concern right now, or the biggest question mark maybe, the defensive line, and particularly on the interior of that? When you watch them, obviously they're not going to have Sheldon Rankins maybe for the first half of the year, potentially. Not going to have Onyemata in the first game. Is that the biggest concern right now?
I would say going into camp that was. I think that they have unearthed some real gems in free agency, guys that they have not spent a lot of money on. Mario Edwards has had a very good training camp. He's surprised me. I think he surprised people in the building. I think people forget about Taylor Stallworth, who's a very good football player, and Malcolm Brown has been everything that I think they thought he was when they went and signed him. You know, you take some of these other veterans, Sylvester Williams. I think that they're okay inside. I think that that's actually going to be a deeper group than we had really thought going into camp. For me, the biggest question is still that kind of swing tackle role, knowing that, you know, Teron is a guy who has missed games in every season, and I don't think that position has been necessarily won or answered yet.
Have you seen anything to pour water on the hopes at this point, or the more you watch them, the more you think, man, this team's got a shot to be playing for a while?
I think they have all the tools they need to be successful this year. I think the amount of depth this team has built, the way that they have drafted over the last few years, again, this is another class that when going into it, you're going, man, we don't have a lot of capital. And you come out, I don't know that one of these guys is not making the team. I think the whole group is going to make the squad. It's unbelievable when you look at where they were drafted. And so, you know, all signs point towards all of the hype being real with the Saints. The big thing is, and it always is, can you stay healthy? Can you keep the same guys on the field in December that are on the field in September? And if the Saints can do that, then I would be absolutely shocked if they're not in the same place they were last year.
Yeah, and literally, I could not agree more with what Zach Strief says. This is an incredibly talented roster, and when we look at weaknesses on this team, sometimes it feels like we're picking, that they're not actually weaknesses. But anyway, the Saints have headed into the locker room. We are roughly 25 minutes from the top of the hour when the Saints and the Chargers will kick off preseason game number 2. Let's send it back to New Orleans. Ricardo with one of the really interesting offensive questions facing the Saints. Ricardo.
Yeah, and the reason why is because we don't have the Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara show anymore. Kamara is now the star in the Saints backfield. The third-year back will be the featured guy this season. But his new role doesn't mean he'll have to carry the show by himself. Sean Payton wants to make sure all his offensive tools are in working order for the regular season. He gave running back 1 a rest day in California this week. Alvin Kamara did practice on Friday. And a lot will be placed upon the Pro Bowler's shoulder pads this year. Kamara had 201 touches in his rookie season. The touches increased in 2018 to 275. That ranked as the 7th most among running back touches. But Payton has made it clear this training camp that he won't overuse Kamara this upcoming season. He wants to keep him fresh. So enter Latavius Murray to hopefully alleviate some of Kamara's workload. Murray should be up to the task. He got 162 touches in the Vikings offense last year. In comparison, Mark Ingram had 159 in the Saints offense, although he did miss the first 4 games of the season. Murray also has a little less wear and tear. He's played 3 fewer seasons than Ingram, but his knowledge of the position isn't any less than Ingram's.
Let me tell you, I've done every single thing that the playbook has to offer for a running back. I haven't been left out of certain situations. I've been out of the backfield, empty, doing all those things. So right now, for me, it's just learning this offense, being able to do every single thing within this offense.
I've been really impressed with Latavius. I think he's played at a high level wherever he's been. And I think he adds a good element, just that similar element that Mark added. And I think the complement of him and Alvin is really good. And the ability to put them both on the same field at the same time gives you a lot of options.
Murray hoping to be a suitable co-star to Kamara. Now, Peyton would really like to have a third back to spell Kamara and Murray at times. That competition continues on through camp. Dwayne Washington has had his moments. Veteran back Jaquiz Rogers is still trying to learn the offense. And rookie Devin Azigbo is making strides. Coming up on the Eye on the Black and Gold pregame special, Andrew and I will give you our 5 players to watch in today's game. Second-year defensive end Marcus Davenport, one of those guys. Plus, Doug catches up with Saints general manager Mickey Loomis. That conversation coming up. Stay with us. All right, we're getting closer and closer to kickoff between the Saints and Chargers in preseason game number 2. Let's bring in Doug and Andrew as we'll share our final thoughts before this preseason game kicks off in less than 5 minutes here. And Doug, we'll start with you first. Andrew and I gave us our 5 players to watch in this game. I want to know which guy you're watching in today's preseason game.
Well, look, I thought your list was great. I've got 2. One on the list, one not. The one not on the list is Teddy Bridgewater, highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL. He's got a 4-game preseason audition to show the Saints that he can be the quarterback of the future. We don't know how long Drew Brees is going to be playing in black and gold. We know the Saints love Bridgewater. I'd love to see what he can do again, but he's got a 4-game audition. The other who was on your list is Deontay Harris, the punt returner. He went to tiny Assumption College, so he didn't do it against big-time competition in college. He has to show it. He can do it in the preseason. He was unbelievably quick and looked really good in preseason game number 1. We haven't seen Marcus Sherrill since then. So the job is open if Harris can take it, and I'm curious to see what he can do. Ricardo?
Yeah, I think all of us are curious to see if Harris can repeat that performance they did against the Vikings in preseason game number 1. All right, Andrew, who is your guy that you're watching for in today's game?
Well, one of my guys is also from a smaller college, undrafted coming into his rookie season, Emmanuel Butler. It's his time to shine, man. We didn't get to see him in preseason game number 1 against the Vikings. He was recovering from an injury, but I think they wanted to be able to have him healthy for not only these joint practices, but also preseason game number 2. It doesn't look like Michael Thomas is playing, and Keith Kirkwood doesn't look like he's playing either. So this is an opportunity for him to be able to go out there and show he can be a number 3, number 4 wide receiver for this team. And the reality is he's part of the group that pushed Cam Meredith out the door. So this is a prime opportunity for him out in California.
Yeah, we're all waiting to see what he can do in an actual preseason game because so far in training camp, he has been fantastic. And I'll give you my guy, and I think, Doug, you took my guy there, was Teddy Bridgewater, because these 4 preseason games are really the best kind of a gauge of what you're going to see from him to see if he can be not only the backup quarterback, but the quarterback in the future whenever Drew Brees decides to hang it up. So Teddy Bridgewater, my guy. Doug, we will see you later at the Eyewitness News at 10 and on 4th Down on 4 today. But until then, you enjoy the game as the Saints and Chargers are about to kick things off. And finally, of course, kickoff is just a few minutes away between the Saints and Chargers. For all of us here on the Eyewitness Sports team, thank you for joining us for our Eye on the Black and Gold pregame special. Of course, remember the game will be right here on Channel 4, so enjoy it and have fun watching this game tonight. Bless you, boys.